Luxury Rolexes aren't simply for the shopaholic's pride, they're also a distinction of superiority, utility, and unrivaled elegance. Luxury comes to mind when you think about Rolex. It's no surprise. Given the brand's stellar reputation over the past century, a lot of people wanted a piece, and a lot are still wanting it. The resale value of a Rolex is very high. If you do not need the functionality and prestige of a Rolex watch, you can buy one to hold a set price value and sell it at a profit. However, with the huge choice range, deciding on the 5 finest Rolex watches in the world might be very difficult. But for today's episode, we have decided to narrow down your choices to these 5 most wanted Rolex watches in the world. Are you excited to know what these are? Hello, and welcome back to another episode of luxury videos featuring the elegance, style, grace, and beauty of Rolex watches. So sit back and relax as we browse over these finesse timepieces. Starting off with the Rolex Cosmograph Daytona. You've probably already seen this from a couple of our previous videos, but we can't deny the fact that this timeless piece is adored by many watch fans. That is why there is no doubt that once again it's listed as one of the most wanted Rolex watches in the world. Named after Daytona, Florida, the Rolex has been in production since 1963. The Cosmograph Daytona was originally sold to race car drivers but has found a home everywhere else. The Rolex Cosmograph Daytona contains Rolex's most precise and dependable tachymeters, as well as a chronograph scale, allowing racers to measure speeds of up to 400 kilometers per hour, which is why this sports watch was primarily created and sold to racing car drivers. The renowned ZENITH Daytona reference 16520 was the first of the current Daytonas. The legendary ZENITH El Primero movement powers this generation Daytona, making it Rolex's first automatic winding chronograph. This is one of the factors driving up the price of this Daytona reference, which starts at about $25,000. And here is the ZENITH Daytona's replacement, the Rolex Daytona reference 116520, which debuted in 2000. This was the first Daytona to be driven by the caliber 4130, a Rolex chronograph movement developed in-house. This model is far less expensive than the ZENITH and significantly less expensive than the modern Rolex Daytona. So if you are a fan of racing and race car drivers, get your hands on the Rolex Cosmograph Daytona. Next, let us give salutations to the Rolex President. Few watches are as well known as the Rolex Day Date, but this 18-karat yellow gold timepiece is often known as the Rolex President or Presidential Rolex. With its striking look, which contains a patented blue parachrom hairspring and the water-resistant due to oyster casing, which has a proprietary method including clamping down the bezel, caseback, and winding down crown against the main case. The screw-in winding crown has a patented twin-lock double waterproofness technology incorporated into it. No doubt, this day date has adorned the wrists of some of the 20th century's most well-known tycoons and international leaders. The Day Date Presidential, introduced in 1956, was the first watch to display the date and day of the week in a window on the dial. At 3 o'clock, a date display complete with the classic Rolex Cyclops. And according to some sources, an update from 2020, recommended retail costs begin at $33,150 and rise with size and extras. It's clear from the first impression that the Rolex Day Date is special. It's a watch that represents the peak of watchmaking excellence. So how did it come by the President nickname? Looking closely, it's semicircular. 3-piece link President bracelet design for the watch is one of its distinguishing features, and was named after U.S. President Lyndon B. Johnson, who wore a yellow gold day date in 1965. Taking another spot in the most wanted Rolex watches is the Rolex Perpetual Datejust 41. The beautiful shape of the 41mm oyster case, which is furnished with a fluted bezel, is highlighted by light reflections on the case sides and lugs. Now let's take a closer look. This Rolex fluted bezel is a mark of distinction. Originally, the fluting of the oyster bezel had a functional purpose. It served to screw the bezel onto the case, helping to ensure the waterproofness of the watch. But over time, the fluting became an aesthetic element, a genuine Rolex signature feature. Today, the fluted bezel is a mark of distinction, in gold on this Datejust 41. Meanwhile, its oyster bracelet is a perfect alchemy of form and function, aesthetics and technology, designed to be both robust and comfortable. Fitted with an oyster clasp and the Rolex exclusive Easy Link Comfort Extension Link, this clever technology allows the wearer to extend the bracelet by roughly 5 mm, offering extra comfort in any situation. The Datejust has traversed periods while maintaining the lasting traditions that have made it as one of the most known and identifiable watches, particularly in its classic incarnations. If you're by far enjoying this video, please like, comment, subscribe, and ring the notification bell. Stay with us until the end to see the coolest Rolex watches on the list. Moving on to another esteemed Rolex model is the Rolex Submariner. This watch is also something that never misses a spot on the list of best Rolexes. The Rolex Submariner is the unquestioned most popular Rolex model of all time. It was created as part of the company's sports watch collection. As the name suggests, it was created with scuba divers in mind. The original Submariner was shown at the Basel watchmaker back in 1954 and was the first of its type. It was supposed to be waterproof up to 330 feet, but current models can withstand depths of up to 1,000 feet, considerably greater than what divers actually go to. The Submariner is part of Rolex's Oyster Eternal series, with the most popular models being the Submariner No Date, Submariner Ceramic, and Submariner Green. This Oyster Perpetual Submariner is a diving watch that represents Rolex's long-standing connection to the undersea environment. It has a solid link oyster bracelet and a unidirectional rotating bezel. As you know, the current Submariner and Submariner Date models stay true to the original model, which debuted in 1953. In the world of watchmaking, the Submariner was a watershed movement. It established the benchmark for divers' watches. A reason for this power is how relatively unchanged the No Date Sub has been since its inception. It's maintained its core design ethos: black bezel, black dial, large markers, and the iconic oyster bracelet. And last, the hour markers and hands. Rolex watches are synonymous with quality and dependability. They are built for everyday use and, depending on the model, are ideal for a variety of sports and other activities. These clocks are distinguished by their distinct and timeless looks and are built to last. The Oyster Perpetual Explorer II is the perfect watch for exploring the world's distant reaches. And that concludes our top 5 most wanted Rolex watches in the world. Which of these would you want to have? Comment down below and let us know what else you think you would like to see on our next luxury videos. Thank you very much for spending your time with us, and we hope to see you again on our next video. Thank you very much for watching, and see you again next time above first class.